Hey friends, welcome back. Friends, today we're gonna talk on what is servlet lifecycle, and we will also try to understand working of servlet web application. In fact, we try to understand that how exactly the process works behind the scene. Now, if we talk about the servlet lifecycle concept, understanding or knowing about this concept is not important with respect to programming. Even if you don't know how Tomcat process a request, even that is okay. This will not matter in reality. But understanding these things is important with respect to your interviews and your exam. It is really important to understand how exactly behind the scene work happen. Many a time in interviews and in examination, these kind of question may occur, and knowledge of these things, for example servlet lifecycle, is important. So let us check exactly what happens behind the scene when we run an web application which is built on servlet. Now friends, let us quickly check this small little diagram without wasting any time, and this diagram will show you what is servlet lifecycle. Now servlet lifecycle is being controlled by servlet container, and inside the servlet container your web application will run. So your web application will run inside the servlet container. And which kind of web application are you going to run? Obviously servlet web application. So here is your servlet. Now friends, in here we are not talking about JSP. Why? Because whenever you code a JSP file and try to execute your web application and your JSP files are there in your web application, your web server will implicitly convert your JSP file into servlet, and finally servlet will get executed on the web server. So anytime and every time if your JSP also getting executed on your web server, then internally a equivalent servlet is implicitly being generated, and your JSP is not getting executed, but the equivalent servlet is getting executed. Little confusing? Yes, it is little confusing. So try to remember it in this way. Whenever there is a JSP file, web server will generate an equivalent servlet for it, and whenever a request to a JSP file would be made, the equivalent servlet will get executed. So this is it. Now proceeding further, a servlet gets executed in 5 steps. The first 3 steps are loading the servlet class, then creating the instance of servlet, and finally calling the init method. Now this init method is the initialization method. Now friends, these 3 steps are taken only once throughout the life cycle of servlet. So whenever we start a Tomcat, for example, and execute a web application, so these 3 steps will be taken only once, no matter how many pages the web application has and how many requests we make to the web application. Now once all these 3 steps are being taken and we have made a call to initialization method or init method, in other words, your web application is all set and your web application is up and running. Now a user can make an request and your web application will serve it. Now once we make an HTTP request, a method by the name of service get called by the web server. So whenever there is a request, or in other words an HTTP request made to the web server, this service method is being called, and this service method would be called every time whenever a request is made. Means in the life cycle mostly the service method is being called. Now if we summarize what is the catch, the first 3 steps are taken only once in the life cycle, whereas the service method is called whenever we make a HTTP request to the web application. Finally, when we unload the servlet from the web application, then a call to a destroy method is made. Again, call to a destroy method means we are removing or we are unloading the web application from the servlet container, and In fact, it is the end of the web application, and maybe we will restart or reload the web application later. As soon as the destroy method is called, the web application will die. And again, the destroy method would be called only once during the life cycle of the servlet. So whenever we will call the destroy method, your web application will die. Now if we summarize, the first 3 steps are taken only once. The last step is also taken only once. And for every HTTP request, the service method is called during the servlet lifecycle. So this is all about servlet lifecycle, nothing else. And this is only important because of your interviews and because of your examination. And this is really a good to know information. And this is all about it. I guess the explanation was easy to understand and you guys understood it. See you next time. Till then, keep coding. Have a nice day.